we're talking about why are so many children having trouble focusing? Why are so many being diagnosed with ADHD? We have Dr. Shawn Talbott. He is a nutritional biochemist, a psychonutritionist, and a formulator of the gut-brain axis nutrition system with the mental wellness company. So Dr. Shawn, thank you so much for being with me. I know your time is limited, so we're going to cut right to the chase. What's a good place for people to start? You know, for moms that are like searching for something for their kids, they maybe not feeling comfortable with the medication that's being, advised.
My kids now are in college, but I feel for parents who have, elementary age kids or middle schoolers or high schoolers, because when our kids were that age, we actually at one point had for my son, his 5th grade, his teacher came to my wife and said, you guys need to consider medicating this kid, right? Because he can't focus. He's not staying still. He's got ants in his pants. In my son, we used a combination of natural ingredients. We used an amino acid called theanine. We used a flavonoid that comes from a pine bark extract. Nowadays, this was years and years ago, but nowadays there are really good pomegranate extracts. There are really good saffron extracts. In fact, some of these things that I'm listing are used in other countries as first-line natural therapy for ADHD. So in Japan, you would use theanine. In New Zealand, you would use pine bark. In Spain, you would use saffron, right? So these are cultures that have said, hey, we know that those pharmaceutical options are there. We know that they have, certain effects and also certain side effects. But why wouldn't you, if you had access to something like that as a parent, why wouldn't you try that natural product first to see if you can get the kinds of benefits that you're looking for in your children? And then if you don't, then you have the sledgehammer of the pharmaceutical to go to as a plan B. And so for our kids, they took theanine, they took pine bark, they took saffron, they took pomegranate, they took all these kinds of things. And in a very short time, the teachers literally came back to us and said, oh, thanks for taking our advice, because the kids were so much better. It appeared as if we had medicated them, but we didn't. In fact, some of these things, being used in other countries, there are clinical trials out there that show that they are equivalent to things like Ritalin for ADHD, that they're equivalent to things like Prozac for depression, and so a lot of times, the kids that have trouble focusing are also the kids that later on have issues with anxiety and depression and things like that. So if you can kind of nip it in the bud and really help them to not just focus, right? That's only one piece of it. You want them to focus, but you want them to do it in a way that's engaged and connected and creative. A lot of times those pharmaceutical solutions will really focus them, but it's sort of pushing out their ability to be creative and to think out of the box and things like that. So these natural options sometimes are a much better approach for a lot of kids.
Awesome. So you brought your knowledge of herbs and what you used a long time ago into the formulation of this gut-brain axis nutrition system that you are representing now, and myself as well. Can you talk about that, ingredients of it, and just how it works?
Yeah, so I'm the kind of scientist who loves the science, right? To be able to say to people, there's these natural options out there. Go look for saffron. Go look for pine bark. But it's even better if you can actually get those, get the actual one that was used in the clinical trial and put it into a product. And then you can say to somebody, here's the actual product. And this is the one that uses the same level that was used in the trials, the same extract strength, the same purity, the same potency, all that kind of stuff. You want something that you can just grab and plug into the situation and see if you get the benefit. So it's the idea of taking the science, but then applying it so you can actually use it in your actual life. But then going forward, how can we help with some of the things that can interfere with that child's ability to focus? Things like irritability, things like tension, which are related to, but are separate from the outcome that you're trying to get. So then we have to look at the gut and we have to say, all right, where are these neurotransmitters being produced in the first place? The serotonin that helps keep you in a good mood, the dopamine that helps with motivation, the GABA that helps you relax when you're stressed out. And so then we can focus on the gut. So what we decided to do is put together a whole kit that really gives kids, first of all, the baseline nutrition that they need, the vitamins and the minerals and the phytonutrients that they're probably not getting in their diet. So we have a multivitamin called VitaGBX that does that. Then we look at gut integrity. And there are actually specific strains of bacteria that we can give and specific fibers that we can give that help with mood and tension and resilience. And then there are the other performance herbs that we can give, the things like saffron and pine bark and pomegranate and things like that, that can really take the kids to that new level of mental performance, So then parents can sit back and say, well, what level do I think my kids need? Do they just need better nutrition? Do they need, help with their gut-brain axis? Or do they need these targeted, focused mood performance herbs? Maybe they need all of those, but we create 3 separate products so parents can choose what level of intervention is best for them. Their gut issues, a lot of times those kids will have trouble focusing, but they'll be a little more, I don't want to say anxious in the sense of like they're having panic attacks or something like that, but they might be a little more irritable. They might be a little bit easier to set off, to either have a meltdown or a blow up or, some sort of a behavioral issue in a situation where they're nervous and anxious. And so we actually did a trial and published the data earlier this year where we're able to show that if you can control some of those things, if you can restore balance in the gut, and even more importantly, balance across the whole gut-brain axis in these kids, not only do they focus better and have better mood and, those sorts of things, but when they're in stressful situations, when they're in situations where you might expect the wheels to come off, they're in schoolwork or they're in a social situation or they're with their sports team or something like that. Those are situations where a lot of kids sometimes can, stressful. And so it puts pressure against the system, so to speak. So they might be good to begin with, but then you put them in a stressful situation and something bad happens. Even in those stressful situations, these kids were still performing at a much higher level than they were pre-supplementation, so that's important because a lot of times, kids can look perfectly fine when everything is controlled around them, and it's a nice calm setting. But then you put them in those stressful situations, and things go awry. And we're able to show that that's demonstrating that not only are they focused, but they're able to focus under pressure, and that's really where it matters.
That stress resilience piece, right? That's
resilience, exactly.
Super
that's exactly what it is.
So explain one more time again about how the gut really dictates what our brain hears or what is communicated to the brain.
Yeah. So the easiest way for me to explain that to people is to tell them that the majority of our neurotransmitters are made in our gut, right? Why do you care about that? Because a neurotransmitter like serotonin that helps with happiness, and if we don't have enough of it, sadness, 90% of that is made in the gut. About 70% of our dopamine that helps with motivation is made in the gut. Most of our GABA that helps with relaxation is made in the gut. Most of our norepinephrine that clearly helps us focus is made in the gut. And so, when I explain that, I think people sometimes think, oh, great, if I make more of these neurotransmitters, they'll just somehow flow up to my brain and I'll get these mental benefits. It doesn't exactly work that way. But having more of them in the gut, we know is associated in our psychology studies with better mental performance, better focus, better memory, better mood, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able to show that. The mechanism of what's going on probably involves your level of inflammation. It probably involves your immune system. It probably involves your endocannabinoid system. So there's a lot of signaling that happens between the first brain and the second brain. And it's sometimes hard to tease out. We can measure each of these individually, but there's a lot of crosstalk and overlapping and redundancy in these signals. But we know quite clearly if your gut health is better, your mental performance is going to be better.